Good evening, welcome to Monday's Midlands Today from the BBC. Tonight, a warning from the mother of a murder victim who's become a high-profile campaigner in the fight against crime. After years of steady progress, she believes that cuts in policing could lead to a setback, with an increase in antisocial behaviour and gang culture.
Marcia Shakespeare, whose daughter was shot dead 8 years ago, fears the focus on fighting street crime may be lost as youth projects are cut along with some frontline police teams. Our correspondent, Peter Wilson, has this exclusive report.
Of people who attend hospital or the police with knife injuries...
Year 8 school children getting to grips with the harsh facts of life. A lesson on violent crime. Which one of these is real? Which is a ball-bearing gun?
Any guesses? Who thinks real?
Holt School in Lozells is in brand new premises. Set in the heart of Birmingham's gun and gang area, the school has turned around and seen a big improvement in discipline and exam results. The lesson before the summer break was that everyone has choices.
There's always an increase of incidents involving young people around antisocial behaviour in the summer holidays, that sort of thing. But the kids, they're fully aware of the implications of taking toy guns and BB guns out to the parks and things like that.
And then she had a fatal gunshot wound, what went straight through her heart.
Leading from the front is Marcia Shakespeare. In 2003, her daughter Letitia and her best friend Charlene Ellis were killed in a spray of machine gun fire. Innocent murder victims caught in the crossfire of gang warfare.
As kids go from one year to another year and new children come in, they should be equipped and educated in the curriculum basically around violent crime, because this is what we live in.
Holt School has changed, so has this area. Crime has fallen, but 10 years ago, street robberies were on the rise. £1 million was spent on summer activities for youngsters. Crime fell by 50%. At the same time, it was decided to place dedicated police officers in schools working directly with teachers and young people. Holt School had its own police officer along with many others. Now, in the last 12 months, all of those police officers have been returned to normal duties, and senior teachers are warning that that could impact on the fight against antisocial behaviour.
Taking that away has been unfortunate. Certainly, I think the reduction in street crime, robbery and youth crime was a really positive effect, and it remains to be seen how that changes. But certainly we have felt the difference in terms of contact and regular communication with the police since the police officers were pulled from schools, and I think that's common across any schools that had a police officer.
Yet the police say they haven't given up their commitment to schools.
Officers spending time in schools is still a very important part of what we do. In fact, only this morning I received an email from a local head teacher thanking me for some work that some of my officers did in a primary school. So engaging with young people, diverting them from crime and antisocial behaviour remains really, really important to us.
Marcia Shakespeare fears that all the gains of the last decade could be lost in the race to cut budgets.
When Letitia and Charlene were killed, it was bad then, and it was a turning point for Birmingham. And that turning point needs to stop at the point what it is and not be lost through lack of funding and resources.
As youngsters left for the holidays, many adults are asking what will be done to keep them occupied and safe this summer. Peter Wilson, BBC Midlands Today, Lozells, Birmingham.
Well, the Home Secretary, Theresa May, has been in Birmingham today to hear about a new crime unit.
Our reporter Sarah Falkland put it to her that the government was failing communities over cuts which will lead to the removal of designated police officers from schools.
Well, they're not failing local communities. That's absolutely crucial. Of course, there are operational decisions that will be taken at local level as to how budget cuts are going to operate and are going to be put through. But we recognise the impact that the issues around gangs, use of knives by young people has in the West Midlands. That's one of the reasons why West Midlands is one of the 3 areas that we identified from the centre that we should put some extra funding into to deal with this particular issue. And so we are supporting activity taking place locally say in relation to that.
But you're not, though, with respect. These officers have been doing a good job in schools and they've shown to make a real difference with crime and how young people are recruited into gangs. They are now going to be removed. Explain that to a parent of how that's going to make a positive impact.
Well, the decision as to how officers are going to be used locally the decision as to how officers are going to be used locally must be taken at the local level. It's not right for me at the centre in Westminster to say to West Midlands, this is how you should deploy your forces. That's what they must do. And yes, there are difficult budget cuts. They are challenging budget cuts. We accept that. We have to do that because we're facing the biggest peacetime deficit in our peacetime history.
Well, our correspondent Peter Wilson's with me in the studio right now. Peter's a lot of concern in your report about young people, what's available for them this summer and how crime might rise. I mean, how important is that?
Well, at the risk of sounding corny, I mean, teenagers are our future, so that they are important. And for years, the authorities have been trumpeting to me just how special Birmingham is and just how much they've achieved. Yet, on our programme tonight, the woman who's the figurehead of all of that success, with murders, gang-related murders coming down from 27 in 1 year down to 1, she is actually saying you're putting this legacy at risk. So it's very important.
But our councils have to save money, so what's the alternative?
They do, and obviously the Home Secretary there is painting the stark reality of why we need to make these savings. But at the same time, I've been talking to educators who've said a few years ago that they are putting on special projects for 1,000 youths and they had £300,000 to do that. This year, they've just got 30,000.
Isn't it a bit simplistic to say that having something to do for the teenagers will cut crime?
It is simplistic, but often if the right funds are channeled to the right people, then that's what works. It diverts people away. And to use that old phrase, the devil finds work for idle hands, people are saying that unless you really engage with teenagers, what then happens is that you create a vacuum and the drug dealers and the gang members move in to fill it.
Peter Wilson, thank you. Now, have you been affected by antisocial behaviour? Are you concerned about the impact of cuts on services for young people? If so, we'd like to hear from you. Email us at midlandstoday@bbc.co.uk or call 08000 630 630 and we could be telling your story later this week.
Well, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Later in the programme.